So we have finished up chapter 7. I would have passed back your chapter 7 test this morning. You'll have time, hopefully, at the end of this lesson. It shouldn't take too long to get through it, even though I'm introducing it. We should be able to get through it rather quickly. But we're going to introduce integers when this work is done. And I'm pausing there because I want you to understand. I want you to follow along. I'm going to have the practice problems on the cart. I'm going to have then the homework on the corner of the desk. And it's not difficult math, as long as we take our time and think about and process through it. We have to understand what integers are, and we have to understand how we can add and subtract, multiply, and divide integers before I get into chapter 8, which is inequalities. When I talk about integers, what I'm talking about is any positive and negative number, but I'm not talking about 0. 0 is a neutral number. So 0 is neutral. It's not positive, it's not negative. But if I go one step forward on my number line, then I get into my positive numbers. When I go one step backwards on my number line, then I get into my negative numbers. It's the positives and the negatives that are integers, and I need to know how to do those mathematically. Now, I teach all integer work with steps. I teach multiplication of fractions, division of fractions, so on and so forth, with steps. I always teach steps because if you have those steps in your mind, you'll be able to ask yourself those questions, and those questions will always apply from now through any math class that you take through college. For example, a couple lessons ago, we had a question, and there was, I believe, addition and division of fractions. First, you had to know the order of operations. Ask for several extra presents from my dear, so you had to know to do division of fractions first. And there were a couple of you that couldn't remember how to do that. So I started with the questions. Can I divide fractions? And most of you were able to tell me no. And I said, well, what do I do first? And if you didn't remember, then I started with the word keep. And then most of you were able to say, I keep my first one, division becomes multiplication, I flip my second fraction. There are a couple of you who have not taken the time to teach yourself those steps, even though I have taught you those steps multiple times, and you've heard them multiple times if you've paid attention to my videos. You have to be willing to be open-minded and learn these things and truly learn them. Not just hear it and look at a piece of paper where the steps are written and then forget it. You're going to have to be multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting fractions from now all the way till you graduate high school. And then if you go beyond high school, you're going to continue to do it. So you have to learn these steps. Integers works the same way. I'm going to teach you steps. I'm going to teach you questions to ask. My questions are systematic. The first thing I do is I look at what type of math I'm doing. I'm adding. It's important to start with the question, can I add fractions? Because I'm going to have addition, I'm going to have subtraction, I'm going to have multiplication and division that I group together on a video as well as a lesson. That question is not always going to be yes. So I have to know which ones are yes and which ones are no. And then I have to know what to do. Adding of integers. Yes, I can do that. So if I know that I can, then I have to look at the signs. Do I have the same signs? And that's going to be a yes or a no. Same signs means, for example, on this one, I have two negatives. Yes, it's the same sign. If it's a no, there's one positive, there's one negative, then I got a different step to do. If it is the same sign, then mathematically what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that sign. This one's both negative, so my answer is going to be negative. If they were both positive, which is the math that you've been doing since first grade, 2 plus 1, they're both positive. You don't think about you kept the sign, but you did because they were both positive. Your answer is positive. So if they were both positive or both negative, I would keep the sign, and then I would add the numbers together. It's kind of like the like terms that we did in chapter 7. They're like terms because there aren't any labels. I just put them together. If the answer is no, there's one positive and there's one negative, then I have to look at for the largest digit or the largest number. It's not about value. It's not about how far away from 0 it gets. It's just the digits. If there's a 23 and a 14, the 23 is the largest. It doesn't matter if it's a negative 23 and a positive 14, because I'm not talking about who has the largest value. I'm truly talking about the largest digits. When I have no, they're not the same sign, then I look for the largest digit, I keep that sign, then I do subtraction. Even though I'm talking about addition. Because opposite signs tell me that I end up subtracting. So let's look through a couple of these. So here's the example that we're starting with, and I go through my questions. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? Yes, I do. So I'm going to keep that sign, and then I'm going to add them together. So my sign is both negative. I know my answer is going to be negative, and then I'm going to add them together. Well, 2 plus 9 is 11. So I should know that if I kept my sign and it's negative, and 2 plus 9 is 11, then my answer is just simply negative 11. When I look at my second problem, I have a negative 30 plus a negative 8. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? Yes, I do. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to keep the sign. Once again, it's going to be a negative answer. Then I'm going to add the digits together. 30 plus 8. Well, 30 plus 8 is 38. Now, please don't put your pencil to the side and say, okay, I'm done, I get it, I'm moving on. I need you to work through the practice problems that I've given you so you have a solid foundation before you do your homework. A little more than half are very basic numbers. But I'm going to get you into some difficult questions at the bottom of the assignment. I need you to have a solid foundation so you understand this, and we're going to build on this lesson for the next two, and then apply it to inequalities in chapter 8, and beyond that for the rest of the school year. So here's another example. I have 7 plus negative 14. So I'm going to go through my questions. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? I don't. I don't have the same sign. So what am I going to do? Well, if I don't have the same sign, then I'm going to look for the largest number, the largest digits, which is 14, and I'm going to keep that sign. If I keep that sign, then I know my answer is going to be negative. But then I have to know that if they're not the same sign, I'm actually subtracting. So that would be saying I'm going backwards from 0, 14, and then I'm going forward 7. What number on the number line would that take me to? Well, that would take me to 14 minus 7. I already know it's a negative number. It would be negative 7 as my answer. So I keep the sign of the largest digit when they're opposites, and then I subtract the numbers. 14 minus 7 is just 7. So I know my answer is negative 7. On this example, I have addition. I start with the same questions. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? No, I don't, do I? I have a positive and I have a negative. So I have to look for the largest number. Well, the largest number is a 38. Well, what type of number is that? So we have what we call as an understood positive. If it's just a number without an integer sign, then it's always positive. It doesn't matter if the positive sign is there or not. If you think back to plotting things on a coordinate plane in coordinate 1, 2, 3, or 4, we talked about, well, it's automatically positive even though it doesn't say the sign. This is automatically a positive. It's an understood positive number. So this would be saying that I went from 0 and I went back 33 steps. But then I went forward 38 steps. And what does that take me to? So when I go through the mathematics steps, instead of having to plot on a number line that goes back to negative 33 and then forward 38, then I know that I'm going to keep the sign of the largest digits, so I'm going to keep the positive for my answer, and then I'm going to simply subtract because they're opposites. So I'm going to do 38 minus 33. It's going to give me a 5. So I know my answer is positive 5. Do I have to write positive 5? You don't have to. It's not required. I-step's not going to count it wrong unless they tell you in directions. Be sure to show a positive or a negative number or sign with your answer. They haven't done that in several years, so you should be fine with just writing a 5. But if you want to put the positive sign, feel free to put the positive sign. I will never count that wrong on you. So let's work through these. On your practice sheet then, all of these for the next, I think, 10 of them are practice problems for you to follow along. Please follow along. The last two, then we'll talk about when we get to them. So when I look at this one says 8 plus a negative 39, and I go through my questions. Can I add integers? Yes. Do I have the same sign? No. So I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number. And the largest number is 39. So I'm going to keep the negative. So I know that my answer is going to be a negative number. If they're opposites, then I know I have to subtract. So I should show 39 minus 8 on my paper. If you don't show your work, if you don't show me that you're either subtracting them or adding them, you're not going to get the credit. You're not going to get them right. So then I show that I'm subtracting, and 39 minus 8 is 31. So I know my answer is negative 31. That's my answer. I go to the second one. I have 43 plus a negative 20. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? I don't. Well, I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number, but once again, there isn't a sign with the 43, so I should know it's an understood positive. So I know my answer is going to be positive. You can write the positive down with your answer, or you don't have to. It's up to you. But then I have to show my work. So if they're opposites, then I know I'm going to subtract now to find out what positive answer I have. So I'm going to show on my paper 43 minus 20. 43 minus 20 is 23. Stack them, show that you're going to subtract 0 and 3, or just write down the problem, type it in your handy dandy calculator, 43 minus 20 equals 23. I'm good to go with positive 23. On the third one, I have negative 8 plus negative 9. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? Yes, I do, so I'm going to keep it. So I know that my answer is going to be a negative. I'm going to add those two together then. 8 plus 19, I write down that I'm doing that math, show the problem so I can get credit. 19 plus 8 is 27, so I make sure that my answer shows that it's a negative 27. 24 plus negative 43. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? No, I do not. So I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number. My largest number is 43, so I know my answer is going to be a negative answer. If it's a negative answer, then I know I have to subtract them. So 24 and 43, which one would have to be listed first in my subtraction problem? I have to list the 43, right? So 43 minus 24. You can stack them, show that you're going to borrow, and 13 becomes, or 3 becomes 13, and then I end up with 9. Or I type it in my handy dandy calculator, 43 minus 24, it's going to be equal to 19. So I know my answer is a negative 19 because I kept the sign of the largest number. On these four then, 38 plus negative 40. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? No, I don't. So I'm going to keep the sign of the largest number. 40 is my largest number, so I'm going to keep the negative. I know my answer is going to be negative. Then I have to subtract. I would show my largest one since it's subtraction in front. So I'm going to write on my paper 40 minus 38. Very simple subtraction. 40 minus 38 is 2, so I know my answer is negative 2. On the next one, I have negative 6 plus negative 9. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? Yes, indeed I do. So I know I'm going to keep that sign, so my answer is going to be negative. Add those two together. 6 plus 9 is negative 15 as my final answer. So what that says is I went from 0 back 6 steps. I went an additional 9 steps backwards because they're both negative. So it took me a negative 15 steps from 0. On this one, negative 19 plus 31. Can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? No, I do not. The largest one is the positive, so I know that my answer is going to be positive. And since they're opposites, then I have to subtract. 31 has to be listed first in my subtraction problem. So I'm going to show my work. 31 minus 19, and 31 minus 19 is 12. So I know my answer is positive 12. Once again, keep the positive with your 12, or just write 12. Either way is acceptable and a correct answer. On negative 19 plus negative 7, can I add integers? Yes, I can. Do I have the same sign? Yes, indeed I do. So I'm going to keep the sign. It's going to be my answer, so I'm going to have a negative answer. Then I'm going to add them together since they are the same. And 19 plus 7, 19 plus 7 is 26. So I know my answer is going to be negative 26. All right, so on the last two, I want you to do these. Pause the video, find the answers, and make sure that you know how to do this. Ask yourselves the questions while you're working through it so you know you get to the right answers. Once you have your answers written down, unpause the video and then check your work. So hopefully you have your answers and you've done as I've asked. It's a benefit to you I know you can just continue to play and write down what I said and not actually think about it. But if you actually challenge yourselves, then if you don't get it right, you can figure out why and come into me and ask me questions that you have. So when I look at this, hopefully you went through the questions. -10 plus -21, I can add, I have the same sign, I'm going to keep it, I add them together, 10 plus 21 is 31, hopefully you got -31 as your answer. When you went to the next one, then hopefully you started with the question, yes I can add, no I don't have the same sign, 37 is the largest one, so I'm going to keep it, and my answer is going to be negative, so I'm going to subtract. So hopefully you showed then that 37 minus 13 is 24, and you got an answer of -24 for your answer. So that's adding integers. It's not difficult. Okay? If you take the time to learn it, it's pretty easy. Tomorrow's lesson, subtracting integers, a little more difficult, but once again, it's going to be about asking the right questions. Connected to tomorrow's lesson is still the same questions once I get to addition. Can I add? Yes. Do I have the same sign? If it's a yes, I keep the sign and add them together. If it's a no, then I find the sign of the largest one, keep its sign, and then I subtract to get to my answer. Integers is going to be important from now all the way through high school, knowing how to do them. So this is a great foundation. If you take your time, follow along, fill out the practice questions. As you're doing your homework, please come and ask. If you get your homework finished, then do some corrections on your math test if you have any. If not, then do your Moby Max and get your time in for the week.